a very, very, very delicious recipe of brownies. So if you know me, you know two things I love. First is peanut butter, second is chocolate. Brownies fall in that category. At least the brownies we're going to be making today, because there are some brownies that don't involve chocolate at all, okay? So this is also an exciting day because with this recipe it means that International Foods is flipping over to delicious desserts, which is personally my favorite class to teach. So that is very exciting. So let's get started with some brownies today. So brownies, chocolatey, again, sometimes always don't have to be. You can have blonde brownies. But we're going to be making some just kind of traditional chocolate brownies today. So I have got a little jump start. In my saucepan here, I have butter, sugar, and some water. And I melted the butter and I brought that to a boil to warm that up. This particular recipe uses chocolate chips. So we're going to add our chocolate chips to this mixture to get them melted. Now, brownies. Kind of great debate. Fudgy or cakey. So everybody has their own kind of preference here. If you like more of a fudgy brownie, you're going to want to go for more of a melted chocolate type situation. So here I'm using chocolate chips. You could get the bars, like the unsweetened chocolate bars. That'll also work. More of the cakey brownies, you want to go with a cocoa powder recipe, which I personally prefer more of a fudgy brownie, but again, everyone has their preferences. Okay, so my chocolate is pretty much melted. So again, in here so far I have my butter, sugar, water, and now I have added my chocolate chips. I'm going to come in next with 2 eggs and my vanilla. Now I wouldn't have wanted to add my eggs first thing to my hot sugar and butter mixture because we don't want to cook our eggs. We don't want to end up with scrambled eggs. So adding the chocolate first helps to melt the chocolate, also helps to bring down that temperature of our mixture. So added my, again, 2 eggs in here. This is looking fudgy already. 2 eggs in here as well as my vanilla. We're going to combine that all together. And those eggs are going to add some moisture, add some liquid to help. Again, mine's looking pretty gloopy, and that is a very technical term. We're going to break that up. Couple things I did before I started. I preheated my oven. So oven's looking at 325, and I'm at 325, so I'm ready to go there. This recipe calls for an 8 by 8 inch pan. So I have my 8 by 8 inch pan here, shiny pan, and I have sprayed that with your cooking spray, your nonstick spray. You could butter it, you could grease and flour it. When I'm making brownies, I'm okay with the nonstick spray, the pan. As we talked about in class, sometimes with the cooking spray, that can kind of create a little bit of a crust on your baked good, which let's say we're doing cupcakes, we're doing cakes, might not want that. In our case with these brownies, I'm okay with that, so I just use my spray. Okay, so we got a nice mixture here. Breaking up all my chocolate clumps. And we just want to make sure both of your eggs, you broke the yolks, and make sure they are all incorporated. So we got a nice chocolate mixture so far. Okay, next we're going to come in with our dry ingredients. So in this bowl, I have my flour, 2/3 of a cup of flour. I'm using gluten-free personally for myself because I would like to enjoy these brownies. So I have gluten-free flour in here. I also have 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So what we know about leavening agents, brownies are not a baked goods, especially fudgy brownies, that aren't really going to rise less. So we'll just have 1/4 teaspoon of your baking soda in here. Let's also talk about the fact that it is baking soda and not baking powder. We know with baking soda that we need an acid for it to react. We need a liquid and we need an acid. Well, if we look at our list of ingredients here, we're looking for acid. In our case, it's chocolate. Okay, chocolate's going to act as an acid, which is going to cause that that reaction to happen, which is going to cause your baked good to rise. And again, with brownies, we don't get a whole lot of rise unless you're doing more of a cakey brownie. So we don't have a whole lot of our leavening agent here. Also want to point out, think about you are adding all of your ingredients to this saucepan. So you want to make sure that you have a pretty good sized saucepan so that you don't have a little tiny one and then everything's kind of overflowing. Okay, so I think we are good. So that's really all my ingredients. So this is a pretty quick recipe, that might have on hand. The only thing I was out of chocolate chips. That's the only thing I didn't have on hand. I had to run out and get some of those, but everything else is ingredients that you have on hand. Okay, we don't want to mix this too much because we don't want too much of a gluten development. This is not a situation where we want a lot of gluten development because that's going to give us tough brownies, especially with our fudgy brownies. We don't want that. Okay, so I have all my ingredients added here. I get my trusty rubber scraper. Again, nice llama, because I like llamas. Okay, we're going to clean off our wooden spoon because we're done with that. And we have created here a batter. Okay, so we have our batters, we have our dough, and it's just our flour to liquid ratio. This is smooth and pourable. If I tried to pick it up with my hands, I couldn't. So that's what makes this a batter and not a dough. So again, 8 by 8 inch pan. Don't want to go with a 9 by 13. But 9 by 13 inch pan, they're going to be way too thin. They're going to overbake if you set it for the amount of time for an 8 by 8 inch pan. So 8 by 8 inch pan. Again, I've greased it. And I'm going to go ahead and add my chocolate mixture, which is looking delicious. So again, cakey brownies versus fudgy brownies, fudgier brownies. Cakey brownies are typically going to be made with cocoa powder, which can be another one that you probably have at home. Fudgy brownies are going to be with that melted chocolate. Also, what we're going to see some kind of similarities, or I should say differences here. Your fudgy brownies typically going to have butter in them, and your cakey brownies are typically, the fat we're going to see used in them is typically going to be oil. So if we think about our types of fats here. Okay, so that looks good for that. So these are ready to go into the oven. These are going to go into, again, 325, 25 to 30 minutes. Now, how can we tell these are done? Especially with these being a fudgy brownie, you might kind of think about the toothpick test, where you stick a toothpick in. We do that with cakes. You stick a toothpick in. If it comes out clean, then you know it's done. Fudgy brownies, they're still going to be kind of moist in the middle. So might not always work. If you bake them to the point where your toothpick is going to come out clean, they're going to end up being overbaked. So what we can do is we can still do a toothpick test, but if it comes out and it looks really runny in the center, really gooey, still, that's underbaked. If you stick a toothpick in and it still comes out with some clumps in it, they kind of look formed though, that could be a sign. Also want to look for the brownies to kind of pull away from the sides of the pan. And kind of look if it jiggles, okay? If it's in the oven yet and it jiggles a little bit, that means it's probably not done in the center, okay? So we want kind of nice, firm, and set. So those are some ways that we can tell that it's done. Always go by the time stated on the recipe. Some ovens can be different though. Some ovens can run a little bit hot, some ovens can run a little bit cool. So we don't always really want to go stick just by the time because you might be overbaked, you might be underbaked. Okay, and also rotate your pans as well. So some parts of the ovens are a little bit warmer than other part of the oven. So if we rotate that, that's going to help this bake more evenly. So again, 25 to 30 minutes. When these come out, we might be very, very tempted to eat them. And I know I'm going to be. But we don't want to go ahead and slice these yet. With our bar cookies, we want to wait till they cool. If you try to cut them, try to slice them when they're still warm, they're just going to end up falling apart. Okay, so we want to let these cool. We're going to let them cool in the pan. We're not going to transfer them to a wire rack. You can set your pan on top of a wire rack, but we're just going to let them cool in the pan. Okay, so 25 to 30 minutes. These go in the oven. minutes was the perfect amount of time. They've started to pull away from the sides of the pan, which is a good sign. And I didn't test these with a toothpick, but gave it a little jiggle. It's not jiggly in the center. It's not super glossy. If you think about how shiny your brownie batter can be, this has a little bit more of a dullish brown to it, so I think that's another good sign. So I'm going to let these cool. Again, bar cookies, we want to let them cool all the way. Can be a just big giant mess if we go to try to cut them when they are still warm. So I have them on my cooling rack, and it gives them some nice airflow underneath. But that is our brownies, okay? So I will put the recipe for these brownies in the description for the video. Tons of different brownie variations out there. Red velvet with some cream cheese, which is good, which is an option I usually have my students make in class. There's blonde brownies, which are more of a kind of brown sugar base. Might add chocolate chips in there. You can add chocolate chips, you can add white chocolate chips, you can add Reese's peanut butter cups, you can add Oreos to them, really s'mores. Really, the sky's the limit when it comes to brownies. Okay, so happy baking. Be good, be nice, be kind. Go get some chocolate. I know I'm going to be eating some chocolate, maybe with a little scoop of ice cream on top. But otherwise, have a great day, folks. Be good, be nice, be kind. And thanks for joining me. See you later.